Welcome to this free webinar on Delta EE's customer panel. My name is Scott Dwyer, I'm Principal Analyst at Delta, and we're here to discuss the highlights from the customer panel, which is about providing insight into the UK heating market, and also really keen to get your thoughts and feedback on some of these highlights as well. So I'll be chairing this webinar, and I'm also joined by my colleagues from the Heat Insight Service.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Ashurst and I'm a Senior Analyst at Delta. I'm also the Manager of our Heat Insight Service, and I also oversee the customer research that we do with this panel.
Morning, everyone. My name is Walt Greendals. I work as an analyst for specifically Heat Insight Service, so I've done a lot of work with this customer panel that we'll be talking about today.
And we're really interested in your views on this, so please, if you have questions or comments, we want to be as interactive as possible, please send them through. Use the chat box on the corner of your screen, or you can ask questions as well using the webinar software. So please do, don't be shy, and feel free to come in with your comments or questions.
Yeah, well, that's the point today, isn't it? We just want to, like Scott said, share some highlights, hopefully some interesting things for people to talk over, but really to hopefully stimulate some more questions being asked. And obviously, we're really keen to know what you people are looking to learn from customers.
So we thought we'd have a bit of fun with the original webinar invitations, and we added in a little quiz into a couple of the invites and reminders. Just thought, oh, we'll test a couple of the findings from the research, see what people think and what their assumptions are maybe about the UK heating market, sort of typical customer. So we asked you in that first of the polls, what percentage of UK homeowners told us that they plan ahead for their next heating system upgrades. So that was what percentage of UK homeowners said they plan ahead for next heating systems upgrade. And we gave you a few options, and the actual answer to this was, I know you're all on the edges of your seat here, 62%. Stephen, impressions about that? I mean, what did people generally respond with on that, and what might you expect?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question, this one. Obviously very, very relevant, especially when you come to consider the potential to sell other heating technologies, perhaps more low carbon technologies. I can say that the response from people who sign up to the webinar was 17%. So people who registered with us today felt that very few customers actually plan a next heating system upgrade, and we appreciate that as the conventional wisdom in the sector. However, this obviously number that we find is challenges that. Just to give a bit of explanation, this was from our 1,000 homeowners. Yeah, well, I think we just had a question there. How was it asked? So that this question was asked to our 1,000 homeowners, and put quite specifically. So it wasn't a theoretical question, but it was along the lines of the last time you upgraded your heating system, was it a planned replacement? For example, the heating system was still working. It was old, okay, perhaps coming towards the end of its life, but you did not wait until it had broken down or had been condemned before you upgraded. Or on the flip side, did you actually wait until got as much life out of it as you could have? Had started to have some issues. Heating engineer came out and said, look, I can't do any more for you on the system. You have to replace it. So I know there's always going to be a bit of contention on that, but we were quite expectant actually of a high proportion of customers actually planning ahead. We've been doing this research for a long time now, and it's something that we do here, and it's feedback that we get from our installer contacts as well, that there's quite a lot of preemptive upgrading still, despite the convention in the sector that is to the contrary.
So so again, it's kind of maybe dispelling a myth maybe that most people replace, you know, as and when it's needed. I mean, how do we know that people aren't, you know, the question, how do we know that people aren't just giving wrong answers or lying here? I mean, what checks do we have for that?
Well, good question. We have to be as, you know, as specific as we can when we ask these questions. Like I said, we are experienced of putting these surveys together. We're also working with a market research expert who's been in the sector for over 25 years, who we have a good working relationship with before. So our questions are always hopefully very clear and very easy to follow, so there's no misunderstanding by the customer. Of course, with online research, there's a small element of you don't always know for absolute certainty that the person has understood. But there are additional checks in our surveys, for example, time limits to complete them. So no one is able just to sort of fire through questions and you know, just collect their small stipend at the end. So a few checks, Scott, and I said, you know, we're quite experienced at this kind of research now, and we stand by our results.
Thanks, Stephen. I think we've got a whole host of questions coming here, so this is great. This is exactly what we want. So we've got a good question here about, do we know how far ahead people plan in terms of their you know, for planning their next heating system upgrade?
Well, that's something that we'll look to explore further in detail, and you know, in coming surveys. The whole point of this, establishing this panel, which I think Val's will come on to in a wee bit as well, is you know, we can really build a very detailed picture about the route to market, about the decision making process, about how customers think. We've had a question that also I can see on my screen. What do you think this 62% finding means for energy suppliers, manufacturers? Well, obviously I think it's a very positive bit of information to have. Clearly customers are open to you know, there's let's say there's a window of opportunity to educate customers on what the alternatives are. Like I said, this challenges the conception that customer boiler breaks down middle of winter, they freak out, they say I don't want to be without heating for the next couple of days, let alone a week or so, and then they just do a like for like swap. We think it shows that there's at least there's a longer window of time to educate customers on what the alternative options are. And then of course it comes down to the business side of it. Can you convince customers to perhaps spend a bit more or install a system a bit differently in order to get more perhaps more utility or equally, you know, to save on the running costs? And that's, you know, that's up to the market ultimately. That's something we also want to help explore.
And with the customer panel, you can really drill down into who those customers are who are planning ahead and find out exactly what are the characteristics of those customers, what are they thinking, what are their key decision factors.
Yeah. So I was just looking at a question coming in there as well. A good question. How much of these planned upgrades are driven by incentives, government incentives like the boiler scrappage scheme? Well, again, there's not been a government scrappage scheme over, I think, the last 4 or 5 years maybe. But working in the sector at the time when the 48 EST actually, when the government launched that, I know that was hugely important. There was a massive amount of interest months, if not a year before the scrappage scheme came in. So, you know, if you're looking at this from a government perspective, yeah, or even not from a government perspective, but as a manufacturer, if you launch your own scrappage program, I think customers would be very, very receptive to it. We'd only see numbers climb.
And there is a talk about a boiler scrappage scheme in London. Is that right as well? Or
you're right, actually. Yeah. So that would be a London-only program. I'm not sure exactly how many say vouchers would be available, but again, I would expect when that does launch, there'll be it would be oversubscribed or subscribed to the maximum very, very quickly.
Yeah, one confirmed there about there has been one running in London at the moment. Yeah, got that. Thanks, thanks, Tim. Okay, well, I think we'll just move on from that. I mean, brilliant questions. We'll come back to those if we've got a bit of time at the end. But obviously, a very interesting topic we could go deep on. So, next question we asked you was, what proportion of homeowners have a boiler that is more than 10 years old? Was it 1 in 10, 3 in 10, or 5 in 10? So if you didn't answer this at the time, you can type in your response in terms of the questions, what you think. We have a 5 in 10.
5 in 10 there, yeah.
I have a 3 in 10. Okay, another couple of 3s and 10s. Okay. In fact, the answer was 3 in 10. So, yeah, well done to those who got that one right. And again, Stephen Val, it's something you would have expected?
It's something that, well, we were, yes, we were expecting it. But interestingly, the response again from registrants to this webinar was 5 in 10. So the majority of people expected 5 in 10. And again, I suppose it just goes to show how, you know, these kind of pieces of information that may well have been true in the past, or that might represent only a certain demographic in the market, just going to get picked up on, and sort of how many actually know? Sorry, we're just there's so many questions still coming in, so we're just monitoring the questions at the same time. Sorry, Paul was saying there, yes, Scott, we did expect this, but it was interesting that the industry actually thought the age of the boiler park would be older. And well, again, just from my side, just goes to show that customers are that bit more proactive. British customers are that bit more proactive than we would typically give them credit for. Again, another valuable element we hope to the panel is to challenge these kind of conceptions. In the first instance, to challenge it, and obviously to build a much clearer, more informed picture about what these kind of customers, these customers actually look like.
And I think there's a lot more we could go into here about the demographic of the panel, how it influences, but we'll come on to the demographics of the panel later, Val, so we'll talk a bit more about that. Okay, so that was our little role at being the quiz masters for you today. So and I think that just, we just picked a couple of findings that we thought would be interesting to get, to run past people and see what the sort of conceptions were about those sorts of topics, and what the answers might be. So we've got plenty more of this for the rest of the webinar. We wanted to get started with that, but just to give you a quick summary about Delta. I know most of you on the webinar today know who we are, but for those who don't, very short intro. We really see our role as helping those we work with navigate this massive transformation we're seeing in the energy system today. So this is from a point where we very centralized, commodity-driven market to much more customer-centric, service-orientated future. And what we do is we help bring insight on customers, and also on the technologies and the policies and the business models, and how this all really influences and has an impact on the market, and what the key drivers are. And we do obviously customer research, how you've seen, market analysis, scenario, strategy development, benchmarking of the different technologies as well. And we look at a whole host of different types of technology there. On the demand side, whether it's heat pumps or micro CHP or others, PV or other types of microgeneration technologies. Look at connectivity, connected homes, smart thermostats, and also how these all interact in terms of energy storage, demand response, and increasingly amounts of work for network operators in terms of what happens if all these technologies come online, and what impact does that have on the networks. So plenty more on our website. We're constantly publishing free content, having these sorts of webinars. So sign up to our newsletter and check that out for more information on any of these topics if they are of interest. So this, I'd just like to talk a bit about, we've mentioned this big transformation in the energy system, and this is really what we're trying to track with this customer panel, and what we're seeing, which is the sort of inflection point in the home heating market. So previously we had, market was quite, utility sold electricity and gas, heating manufacturers sold boilers. And what we're seeing now is change where you have lots of different types of technologies, you have competing with each other, combinations, hybrids. Utilities are starting to offer more and more services, manufacturers are starting to offer more services, and obviously you can argue about the degree of pace between different markets. We look across Europe and beyond as well. Some markets this is happening faster than others, but I think we really see this big change, and this is what we're trying to track in terms of the customer as they're becoming more and more central to this. So really try to help our clients understand this big change from the customer point of view.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. So for the remainder of the webinar, I think myself and Valts will firstly just give a bit more detail about the structure of our panel.
Yeah.
And again, a few more examples of the kind of research that we have been doing so far. This is the first year we've established the panel. It's not the first year by any means that we've been doing customer research, but the first year we have our own in-house panel that we can, build on surveys with and go back to. And yeah, equally still, please keep the questions coming in. They've been great so far. There'll be time throughout and at the end to address more questions as well. But yeah, Valts, if you can take us just through this slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So just to give a brief overview of the customer panel. So basically, this is the 1,000 customer panel that we recruited at the start of this financial year. And I've seen quite a few questions coming in about the characteristics of the panel. So hopefully this answers some of those questions. So all of them were homeowners, as you can see on this slide, higher segs, so A's to C's, decision makers on energy, and living in houses, so detached or terraced houses. And also one of the things we did was we recruited a higher proportion of customers in off-gas segment. So 30% of the customers in this panel were in the off-gas segment, just to give us a bigger sample of off-gas customers as well. And so we did an initial exercise for our HIS reporting of baselining all of those the customer attitudes from this 1,000 customer panel. And so a few of the things that we found from this panel. So we had 105 customers with smart controls, which is again something that we can come back to with this panel and talk to specifically these customers. Also, we had quite a big fraction, so 293 customers that were indicated they are engaged with their energy usage. Also 115 customers with microgen installed, 23 with electrical vehicles, and 822 had a boiler, so either gas, LPG or oil as a primary source of heat. So this also helped us to talk to and baseline some of the attitudes from customers with conventional heating systems, not only microgen. So yeah, this is kind of the brief overview of the panel.
Great, thanks, Valts. And I'll just add a couple more points to that, just based on the questions we've been having, in the few months since that we've really started publicising this. So like Valts said, the panel is made up of people who own their own home, and it is a house. We don't have any flats in the panel. Higher socio-economic groups, so that's your A's to C's.
Yeah.
No people who come under the D and E brackets. So what that does rule out is, for example, research with the fuel poor.
Yeah.
It's something that this panel hasn't been established to do. Traditionally, we've also looked at the market for low carbon heating among homeowners, and obviously it's your higher socio-economic groups who can explore that. But the sample itself, so with 1,000 customers, you're talking a very significantly robust sample, a very high confidence level for any kind of survey you would do. As a minimum, you look for a 400 sample size, for example, with this kind of research. And obviously our maximum we can get up to is 1,000. So again, really just hoping to not just provide interesting kind of insights for people, but really robust, statistically robust, significant findings too. And the kind of research that we do, well, we've covered covered it a little bit already. A lot of things you can do with the panel. Something that we've done before, and we're looking to do again at the moment, actually concept testing. So if you're a supplier who has a new idea for a product or for a business model or for a bundle of the two, we can also put this to the panel and get feedback on the more appealing, less appealing elements that could be included, customer acceptance factors, kind of deal breakers or deal sweeteners. We can also, on the back of that, do quite routine market research methods like willingness to pay, and get a very good baseline appreciation of where you to introduce an offer or a service into a market at a specific price point, what your maximum potential uptake could be, obviously among this segment, not including the field poor. Track attitudes, how they change over time, really important, and also with this panel over time they'll become more educated and more engaged and more aware, we hope. Two benefits there, obviously you can be more confident that they've understood the questions that we're asking and the responses will hold true, and I think it just saves us time each time we go back to sample the panel, explaining, for argument's sake, what a heat pump is again or what a ground source heat pump is again. These customers build up a level of appreciation, of understanding, of knowledge what these systems are, and of course in future we can track how attitudes and awareness to government policies, to new technologies, to new business models are changing, which we can get in-depth first-hand insight. It's not all quantitative. I think personally I find as interesting the qualitative research that we do, so that's in-depth interviews, for example, with specific people. Also we know the kind of key demographic information about the panel members, so we can always target a select group of people for a particular piece. Valts is going to give us an overview in a moment of something we've done already. And with our panel there is also the opportunity to do things like online focus groups, something that we've not done thus far, but something I'd be keen to do in future. It's easier to recruit than having to get everyone in the same place at the same time. And like I said, we are working in conjunction with a very experienced market research professional who would assist us in such activities. So just a quick overview of what we can do.
Just a couple of questions come in here and some comments. So one comment about the panel and the fact that it's from the higher socio-economic group, and that this is actually influencing the answer to the question about planned and advanced heating system upgrade, and that lower socio-economic groups would be less likely to plan. This is true, isn't it?
Maybe. Also, the way I look at it, a lot of the people in the lower socio-economic groups, for example, are in the private rented sector, are in social housing, and in social housing it's the RSL which has the authority over when the heating system is upgraded. And actually, again, this is a segment of the market that Valts and myself also do research with, and we find they do have routine upgrade programs. They're probably more likely to plan an upgrade, say once it's been 10 years or once it's been 12 years, than and stick to that plan than perhaps a private homeowner would, because they've got ongoing maintenance budgets, programs, etc. In the private rented market, that's just kind of a bit of a free for all. It's a market that isn't moving anywhere as far as energy efficiency or uptake of any different any low carbon technology as far as I see. So yeah, in that sector it's probably more of an ad hoc decision once the tenant's boiler has gone. Obviously the tenant himself has no control over when that's upgraded. But I still stand by our finding. A good question, I should say, but I still stand by that our findings are, I think, pretty representative of this private homeowner segment, which is, especially within the context of this webinar, who we're talking about, who we're focusing on.
And I guess that leads in with another good question about whether the panel is representative of the UK population. as 10% microgen seems high, but again, it's not the UK population, it's of the high socioeconomic group that we're speaking about here, homeowners.
That's it, yeah. And again, good point to bring up. We didn't do a completely random sample, and we just targeted these higher socioeconomic groups. And like Val said, we also specified we'd want minimum, I think it was maybe minimum 200, but we ended up with 300 off-gas customers because we know that part of the market is more engaged with with energy and with low carbon as well. Like I said, the findings are still very, very robust in terms of the sample sizes, and we challenge people, I suppose, to find a more representative sample that exists out there.
Okay, thanks, Stephen.
So moving on then, Valts, I think you were just going to now give us an overview of how we've used the panel thus far.
Yeah, so just to give an example of how we've used the panel. So this is for a report that I worked on just recently, which was in-depth phone interviews with the customers from the panel that I talked about just a few slides ago. So what we did was we identified key topic areas we wanted to explore in more depth. So that was customers with smart controls, talking to younger customers, and talking to customers who show interest in financing. So the three topics we covered were different new ways of buying heat, as well as business models, and talking about customer experience with smart heating controls if they've had one installed. So basically what we did was we went through our initial analysis of our 1,000 customer panel, identified key profiles that we need to target for this specific research. So we filtered this through our criteria and went back to 20 specific customers that would be interesting to talk to. So this is also shows the benefit that we have from this customer panel that allows us to actually come back to the people we've already talked to, identified as interesting for some specific topic. So we went back to these 20 customers, had 20 to 30 minute phone interviews with them talking about these topics, and so this is the kind of the key information about this. Yeah.
Okay, so back to the quiz. We've got loads of good questions coming in, but we're just conscious of time, so we'll try and come back to these questions and comments afterwards. But thanks. Do keep these coming. This is great, and we'll answer them towards the end and more as we go. So next set of questions. So what do actually customers want from connected boilers and smart heating controls in terms of the customer panel we spoke with? And our general finding here is that customers are still struggling to understand what actually classifies as smart heating controls. So first question, what percentage of customers we interviewed thought they had, only what percentage of customers we interviewed who thought they had smart controls actually had one installed? Okay, so basically we asked people if they had smart controls, they said yes, but people didn't actually have one
when it came down to speaking to them. Yeah.
So so what percentage of customers we interviewed thought they had smart controls actually had one installed? And those that did have them only made what use of one key feature? What was that key feature? So
yeah, I think we'll give you a moment or two to respond to this one, because personally I would be quite keen to see what our audience thinks of this. So you can see answers coming through now, which is great. A couple more moments for you. And again, good question, good clarifying question. What is a smart control? Well, in this instance, we're talking specifically about smart heating thermostats. So that's, the thermostats that have the added functionalities of things like weather compensation, learning abilities, also remote control, being able to set loads of different programs, and I'm sure there are many, many more that you use on your particular thermostat, Scott, as well. But not your typical smart heating thermostat is what we're looking at.
I just use mine because it looks nice. So.
Okay, well, a couple of answers then coming through. Let me read out. We're saying in terms of percentage of customers, we have a 10%, a 10%, a 50%, another 10%, 10%, clearly the favourite here, another 10%, 25% and 50%. You're not allowed two guesses. And okay, well, let's have a look then. Let's see what we found. So it's 40%.
Yeah.
So we identified, a small subsample of our population to go back to and have these interesting conversations with, and ultimately, well, what's that? 2 and 5.
Yeah.
Basically, people who thought they had a smart heating thermostat based on our description on the first survey actually turned out to have one. So clearly, still an education issue there. Clearly, an awareness issue there. With regards to the key feature, and people would use, and I suppose there will be people on the panel who have these controls themselves and actually use them a bit more than Scott does. We're seeing remote control, remote switching on and off, remote control, timer function. Well, yeah, well done everybody. It was a remote control feature.
So that's using their phones basically to switch on and off.
That's using their phones to control when the heating comes on and off.
Yeah. So well done those who got that. And yeah, just a sort of follow-up to this. So customers were generally open to the concept of connected boilers for more robust and efficient servicing. But we found 4 key concerns from our customer panel of why they wouldn't want connected boilers for remote monitoring and diagnostics and such like. So we'd just like to ask you again, what concerns you think might have been front and center of those customers' minds? Why they don't want their monitor being monitored, or preemptive maintenance checks, or those sorts of remote maintenance and diagnostics. So
yeah, well, I can see here
got some coming in.
Big Brother and cyber risk. Yeah, absolutely. Data security issues. Just whole privacy issues with being monitored. Bandwidth issues. Yep, a key. I can see being a key concern as well in areas of the country. Hacking. Yeah, but if your internet connection goes down, is it expensive? Is it going to add to my cost, or in principle, as a customer sees it, it should be something that would save on their cost. So all good answers. So we've got 4 key ones that came up here. So yeah, suppliers looking for problems, any hidden charges, fear of being tied in once signed up to a contract. That's a fairly typical response we hear in this area, and some submitting control to a third party. So giving up any kind of, not ownership, but any kind of control over the system installed in the house.
Yeah, what was the largest response to a questionnaire about in terms of those 4 key concerns?
I was looking for problems.
Yeah. So that's basically whoever's doing the diagnostics, they're looking for something, and then they're lying that there's something wrong with it, or they're finding a very small issue and then they're charging you for fixing that when it doesn't need fixed.
I think as an example, some of the people mentioned cars. Basically, when you bring in your car for a checkup, they'll look for a problem, for example, to fix, to just get some money from you. So they would see that coming from a boiler as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these are the things vendors really need to address in their propositions, really, if they're offering the service.
Again, and that's it, and that's the value we find in the panel, just being able to explore these concepts in more depth and more detail, over time. Obviously we're just at the start of the process, but over time we want to add layer and layer of understanding to these particular customer types and how they think and what different propositions could be more appealing to your different customer groups.
And those other responses from everybody on the call today, you read out a lot. They still came up. They were still you know, like the security, the hacking,
Yeah.
they were all still concerns that came up. They just weren't the most prominent ones.
I think that's a fair way to put it, Scott. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's move on then.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone for those responses there. Another question. This is quite interesting because we can use a customer panel for testing new concepts. We've done it here for infrared heaters, and we can do this for any product, technology, service, offering, bundle, whatever it may be. And these infrared heaters, we found that customers weren't not so convinced in terms of this product and the appeal when we explained to them what it was and how it worked. So we'd just like to ask you overall, what percentage of respondents see appeal in using infrared heaters for heating in their property?
So we're giving you a clue anyway.
So they're not convinced, so it's not 100%.
So a bit of background. The reason we're looking at this technology in particular, we know it's going quite strongly in the social housing sector. A lot of the landlords that we've been speaking with over the last couple of years, seems to have been in general a resurgence in interest in direct electric heating. And obviously these panel heaters have been around for a while, but over the last couple of years have made a larger impact in the market. Low cost, easily retrofittable. You can see on the bottom right there, they can be designed and you can have aesthetics on them. Something in principle customers, private homeowners could be open to as well.
So just there's a question asking about what was the sample that we asked this question to. So we asked this question to the whole sample, so 1,000 customers, so customers with on gas, on oil, on electric. So it wasn't only on electric customers that we asked this question to.
Okay, and infrared heaters, we've got a question about define all of these for the people on the webinar who are less familiar with the technology. So
very simply, it's the infrared heater. It's a very direct heat source.
Mm-hmm.
It functions very, very simply. It's mainly ceramic material. Essentially, you just plug it in, and the key difference, I suppose, to a traditional electric heater is that a convector heater, for example, that heats the air in the room. Radiant panels or infrared heaters, they heat the molecules in the fabric in the room. So say that heats you up directly, it heats, say, the chair up directly, the sofa up directly, whatever, instead of heating the air. And obviously the air then begins to circulate and passes heat to you through the various ways that happens. But these units, they operate in a different way. They heat solid mass.
Okay.
So yeah, fair point. Perhaps we should have given a bit more instruction there. Like I said, they are still relatively new in terms of sales volumes. Give the answer away in the interest of time. 40% of respondents saw appeal in using infrared heaters for their property.
Okay. And in terms of what the highest appeal towards infrared heating was from customers with what heating fuel, with 70% finding it appealing. So you see there on the chart, we've got gas, electricity, LPG, and oil. So of those different fuel type heating customers, which found it 70% appealing, and obviously there's one there up at 70%, the rest between 30 and 40%.
So we're seeing oil here coming through, LPG coming through a couple of people. It's an LPG, electric, oil again.
Yep.
Electric.
Yeah.
And electric heating.
Yeah. No, it was too late to change your mind there. The last person who changed from who changed from oil to electric. So yeah, and we've got a bit of a profile there about who, because we can do this as well, work out what the profile for the customer that finds this proposition appealing.
Well, yeah, that's again the benefit from having such a large sample. You can do statistical analysis and you can draw out if I can say the word, statistically significant differences between different customer types. So we can see here these products were statistically more likely to appeal to your younger crowd. You can see there people aged 16 to 34, still homeowners. So I'm not saying that we've got people who are aged 16 on the panel, but they're in the younger age bracket. That's a standard research age bracket, and those who are already using electric heating as their fuel source. So potentially these are people who have moved into a flat, for example, old build or new build. Could be either looking to do something to maybe upgrade the efficiency, upgrade the performance, maybe got damp issues. These systems are good for tackling damp, and may well respond a bit more to the fact that these systems are customizable. You can put funky graphics on them, you can put photos on them. So again, just a benefit of having such a large sample size. We think on first instance, 40% of the market, you might think, maybe not worthwhile pursuing. But then when you look at different customer types, obviously we, as it says there, we find 70% of the electric market, the private homeowner electric market, actually find these technologies pretty relevant to them.
I mean, they see appeal, but I mean that there's obviously, that doesn't mean that they're definitely going to go out and buy that product tomorrow, does it?
Well, no. Then you would need to also take the research further and understand what they would be looking for and why they would find appeal. Something we've not done yet, but again could do.
Just coming back to this slide, there was also a question asking about if we have tested district heating as a concept. And in short, so we tested in the same way, with our customer panel, the concept of district heating. Without going into detail, the appeal was quite low, so even lower than infrared heaters. And again, this also shows that we have our sample is also can be split by customers who are interested in district heat, for example, and not interested in district heat. So that's also part of our customer panel sample.
Great, thanks, Valls.
Okay, and we were just conscious of time here, so we'll just fly through this last one. So what do customers want from non-boiler heating systems? So we're talking low carbon technologies here, and while we've been doing this research for almost the last 5 years, what we've generally found is that awareness of these low carbon technologies, whether it's heat pump or micro CHP or biomass, it remains fairly static. But again, we consistently find that once you explain to the customers what the technology is, how it works, quite vanilla explanations, but just break it down for them in a simple way, their appeal to the technology does increase. And so we do firmly believe that if customers can be educated, there's opportunity there to grow sales. So just based on that, we have 4 customer profiles here. You can see they are some a bit more detailed than others, but we'd like to ask you which technology type, and if we could just show you the 4 technologies we want you to match with the different types of customers. So we've got hybrid heat pump, biomass, air source heat pump, micro CHP. So based on those 4 customer profiles, which technology type is found most appealing by which customer? And we can explain a bit about why we think that. So you've got to match the technology to the customer.
Okay, so we've got someone saying biomass has more appeal to the top left, the Scottish customers. Air source heat pump to the top right, electric heating profile customers. Micro CHP to current LPG users. We know there has been offerings in that specific LPG micro CHP offerings in the market in the past. Someone saying a hybrid heat pump to the bottom left, a sort of semi-rural urban dweller. And we'll give you a few more moments to have a ponder, but again, based on the bullet points you saw on the previous slide, these attributes of a customer are where, say, to take the top left box as an example, beginning with Scotland. So customers in Scotland are statistically significantly more likely to find appeal in the particular technology that is going to end up in their box for example, as are off-gas and rural customers compared to on-gas and non-rural customers. Those aged well, obviously those using electric heating to those not, those aged under 34 to those older, so on and so forth. So again, these bullet points all represent statistically significant differences to other potential attributes.
Okay, so just for the interest of time, we're going to give you the answers here. So starting from the top left, so those customers in Scotland, off-gas rural with electric heating, they actually found air source heat pumps the most appealing. Those electric heating smart control users, particularly under 34, under 65, they were biomass was their preference. Your LPG customers, your young LPG customer,
you'd rather a hybrid than micro CHP.
Yep. And then your semi-rural, urban, on-gas, micro CHP. So Stephen, I mean, this was where there was statistical significance in terms of the sample and what those sorts of people, what they found appealing.
That's right, yeah, that's like I sort of covered in the time there when people were putting their questions in. Yeah, these are all statistically significant differences compared to the other customers in their group. And
then we'll just quickly run through this one. Again, what did customers want from their energy supplier? So we were asked to help somebody explore what level of interest there was from customers to hear from energy companies about offers, products, services to help them save energy and money. And again, we used the customer panel to explore this. What we found in general was younger off-gas customers on LPG or electricity held the most potential for engagement. And what we found was about almost 70% of people were open to advice offers to save energy and consumption. And 3 out of 4 of those preferred that they'd be written or emailed or called in terms of that contact. So again, surprising result there, Stephen?
Yeah, so I would say I was quite surprised at that one.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was a question from a Delta E subscriber, so it was phrased in the way they wanted to ask it, and you would, I suppose, accept a good level of receptiveness when posed the question, would you like offers from your utility company to help you save on your bills? But it still shows, well, I think that was about it's about 60% or plus of the sample are open to further dialogue, to further engagement with their supplier, which is something that we don't normally think is the case. Again, a bit more detail on the right hand there about how people would like to communicate. I think the biggest bar it's by email. People are looking, to communicate via email these days, and followed by over the phone. So just a quick example of a kind of specific need that one of our subscribers had that we looked to help them answer through the panel. Now, for the last 5 minutes or so, just to sort of wrap up, we've covered kind of research, the methods that Delta have used already with our panel in terms of an online survey, VALT studies, teledepth interviews. There are a much wider range of things we could do, and really just interested for a bit of feedback on what the sector would like us to focus on. Perhaps we can share some highlights in the next webinar in this series from different methodologies we've been using. Something we are doing at the moment is concept testing of a range of new business models. Really interesting that EDF Energy and Solar Century, is that right? Lightsource, sorry, the other one. Coming to the market, the residential market, with a solar PV plus battery option with a per purchase agreement contract. And one of the models we're looking at, we have a survey live with our panel at the moment, and we are exploring openness to using per purchase agreements. Also, the PV market has to adapt somehow, and we think per purchase agreements, well, EDF Energy thinks as well, could be one option to get PV sales back up. Like Scott mentioned at the start of the webinar, new product designs, propositions, ways to buy heating or even heat. Customers open to buying heat. Obviously, there's several examples from continental Europe of new business models doing quite well, where what has been sold is heat, not not a fuel, not a commodity. How can you optimize bundling, say a product and a service together? Attitudes towards third-party control of heating. We saw from the feedback from the smart control users or the people considering smart controls that actually most would certainly have concerns about third-party operation of their appliances. Willingness to pay is a method we've used before, and we can certainly do again with this panel. So that's putting a proposition towards a customer and having them state how likely they would be to buy it, to take it out at a specific price point. Again, just help say retailers refine their strategy, how they come into market and what cost points. Customer preferences for any range of different business models, products, solutions, and obviously key to this entire phase of work that we're doing is building up a really detailed understanding of the different types of customer out there. So we've got a couple I think I see a couple bits of feedback coming through. Top 3 of most interest, the top 3 would be of most interest to you. So that's the concept testing for new models, new product proposition, ways of buying heat and heating. Someone else, concept testing of new business models and ways to buy heat and hot water. Personally, I'm really interested, what the sector can do in terms of moving towards a more service-based environment, more service-based offers for customers, where it's heat that's being sold or service comfort that's being sold and not just an appliance. Someone asking, will the presentation and the webinar be available offline? Yes, we'll, as usual, we'll publish it on the Delta website or the Delta YouTube channel, and everyone will be notified shortly about that. So all good there. Moving back up.
I think the question is specifically about availability offline as well, so will we be emailing the actual presentation to people attending as well?
Yeah, we're doing that as well, yeah.
And just to finish off then, we've said about the research that we have done, what we'll be doing in the future, but how can you actually access the Delta E customer panel? So there are 3 ways. The principal way at the moment is through a subscription to our Heat Insight service, which is a wider research program looking not just at private homeowners, although the customer panel element allows us to do the private homeowner research. The Heat Insight service also looks at research with social landlords, with installers, and also considers sort of market forecasts for the low carbon technologies. But this year we have 4 specific exercises with our customer panel planned for the Heat Insight service. The results you've seen today are from the first 2. You can also approach us if you've got a specific piece you'd be interested in putting to customers. We can use the customer panel on a bespoke approach as well. Something that we're also exploring going forward is a sort of omnibus type survey, whereby you can chip in a question or 2 to a survey we have already set, and also we'll share the results with that just with you, for example, if that's your terms that you would like to participate with, and that would be a very cost-effective way of doing customer research with a large sample.
Okay. So, just say as we wrap up, thanks to everybody for attending today. We've had some brilliant questions. A lot of questions around some big picture stuff as well about what energy system is going to be able to deliver low carbon heat in UK. We do have a view on that. We're happy to pick that up with you offline for those that asked about that. We had lots of questions around methodology, the wording, the panel, the definitions. Obviously there's not enough time to go into technical. We've obviously got a lot of knowledgeable people on the call as well, but we're very happy to answer any questions about methodology, how things are phrased, the panel, what it constitutes. So do, if you want to speak about that, subscribers get full access to all the methodology, all the information, the full makeup of the customer panel. So just like to say thanks to you all for your time today. We'll be in touch with highlights. Send us through any other questions. Sorry for any questions we didn't get to answer. We'll try and follow these up as well offline. And thanks to our other presenters, Stephen and Valts today.
Thanks everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.